board if you want to.
Sure. Okay, Jim has a statement here. He unfortunately wanted desperately to be here in person. However, his wife contracted or was with somebody that had COVID, so he's housebound for 2 weeks. That's why he's not here in person. But he graciously said he could do this online. A little background on me and Jim. I was trying to recruit John Flad to give money to the Madison Opera. I was on the board. So he was my neighbor. I went up the hill to his house and I said, John, I'd like you to consider maybe making a donation to Madison Opera. And he said, George, I've got a better idea. Why don't you build a room at the University Children's Hospital? And I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, that Flad is the organization that built the Children's Hospital. So he talked me into doing that. So instead of getting a donation for the opera, I ended up getting a donation to the Children's Hospital. Along the line, the person who was working for the marketing department of the Children's Hospital, and Ann and I became good friends, he and his partner. And they were over to our house several times for dinner. Unfortunately, he got a better offer from, I think it was somewhere out west, and then Jim took over for the last, 8 years, Jim?
I've been there for 15, and yeah, I've been director of development for 15 plus years.
All right, and I didn't realize it was that long. And so we met with Jim on a number of occasions for ideas of raising money for the Children's Hospital. A little background on Jim. He grew up in Western Wisconsin. He has a BS in English and Business from DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. After 2 years in the front office of the Chicago White Sox, so one of my favorite teams, I used to use Nellie Fox's bat. Spent 22 years in the television broadcast industry. He's the director of development for UW Health and American Family Children's Hospital. He's responsible for raising funds for the $4.3 million building campaign and the $16 million expansion campaign. And he resides in the town of Madison, married to his wife, Kim, and they have 2 sons who are incredible golfers, and you'll probably see them on the tour. Jim, take it away.
Thank you, George. So here, Aaron, I'm going to try doing this share screen.
There's a ghost.
Okay. And then
It's coming.
let's see. Can you guys see that?
We can see you.
And then set up
It's taking
slideshow.
just a moment.
It's the black hole.
It did this last week too, where it took a second.
It's a little bit
Right.
bigger screen than you've got in your living room, George.
All right, so you should be good to start. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mute our mics so you can talk, and then when people have questions, we'll unmute.
Okay, so do you see the solo slide there?
Yep, so we'll hit from beginning and you'll blow it up to full screen.
Okay, let's see. From beginning.
Upper left.
I got it, okay.
Boink.
Perfect. All right.
Excellent.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much. It's an honor to present to you guys. And George and I go way back. I've had the privilege of knowing George and Ann for a decade and a half, and we've played a lot of rounds of golf together and so forth. So it's been a lot of fun getting to know George the past several years. So last year we actually celebrated the 100th anniversary of the opening of the first children's hospital in Madison. It was the Mary Cornelia Bradley Hospital for the Study of Children's Diseases. That building still exists on Linden Avenue. And, I think just the name of the Mary Cornelia Bradley Hospital for the Study of Children's Diseases, it connotes our heritage of patient care, research, as well as education. We have long-standing ties to the University of Wisconsin. As a matter of fact, the first appointee to the University of Wisconsin Medical School was a gentleman by the name of Harold Cornelius Bradley. He arrived on the University of Wisconsin back in 1906, recruited from Yale University by President Van Hise, and shortly after arriving on the campus, he met and fell in love with a young lady by the name of Mary Josephine Crane from the Crane plumbing family down in Chicago. They got married in 1908, And their first of 8 children, one girl, Mary, the firstborn in 1909, 7 brothers followed. She arrived in 1909. Tragically, in the summer of 1915, Mary got sick. She contracted spinal and cerebral meningitis. And sadly, there was no place to take her in Madison, so they ended up taking Mary down to Chicago, but by that time it was too late. And she succumbed to meningitis in early January of 1916. Needless to say, the Bradley family was just devastated by Mary's passing. And they wanted to honor Mary, a long-lasting tribute to Mary. So the Bradley family, along with help from the Crane family, gave a gift of $75,000 to build the first children's hospital in Madison, Wisconsin, appropriately named after Mary. And interestingly enough, in this year and a half of a pandemic, while the hospital opened up officially in 1920, it had an actual opening in 1918 to treat victims of the Spanish flu. And so it served that purpose for 2 years before it opened up officially in 1920 exclusively as a children's hospital. So I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. So just give a quick history of the evolution of the children's hospital here in Madison. So I referenced the Bradley Hospital opened up in 1920. It was a relatively small hospital, just a couple stories, about 10 to 12 patient rooms with a laboratory downstairs. We quickly outgrew that. So in 1930, we opened up Children's Orthopedic Hospital just about a block and a half west of the Bradley Hospital. That building also still stands. In 1979, we moved from the Children's Orthopedic Hospital. All services for University Hospital moved to the present location at 600 Highland Avenue. And transport of patients was quite different than it might be today. As a matter of fact, there are pictures of 18-wheelers pulling up to the front door of the old University Hospital and taxiing the patients over to the new hospital in 18-wheel trucks. I don't think that would be how it would be done today. Anyhow, so that children's hospital, it was a hospital within the hospital, and it was state-of-the-art for its time, 61 rooms, so about twice the size of the Children's Orthopedic Hospital. 125 square feet rooms, 125 square foot rooms, all private, so very different from the ward settings of the previous hospital. And that served our purposes very well for 20 some years, but we started outgrowing that. And John Fladd, who George referenced, along with Donna Sallenberger, who was our CEO at the time, got together and had several discussions about the need for building a new children's hospital. So we formed an advisory board, put out our case for support, and opened up a campaign in 2002 quietly to start building a children's hospital. American Family Insurance came forward in 2003 with a $10 million lead gift for the naming right to that children's hospital. And that, gave the campaign legitimacy and momentum going forward, attracting donors such as George and Ann Kroll, among a legion of others that helped us build this hospital. It was actually a $43 million project to open up American Family Children's Hospital, and we opened up in August of 2007. I'll just run through real quickly. So, a 6-story facility. We were initially operational on 5 of those first 5 of the 6 floors. The first floor is the lobby, and we have some public spaces down there, including a safety center. Second floor is our pediatric specialty clinic. We have 43 exam rooms. We have roughly 300 pediatric specialists that hold clinic every day of the week in that pediatric specialty clinic, treating thousands of people on an outpatient basis. The third floor is our surgical Center, which we actually opened up in September of 2008. So about a year later after we opened up the hospital. And, in the first year of opening up that surgery floor, we treated 4,000 patients. Within 3 or 4 years, we had a 50% increase on that up to 6,000 patients. And so we went from operating Monday through Friday, 7A to 5P, to now 24/7, 365 around the clock, performing surgeries for our pediatric patients. The fourth floor, 2 units. We have our cancer unit on the north end of the floor, and then our pediatric intensive care unit on the south. The fifth floor is our general inpatient unit where we, treat kids following surgery and, just general pediatrics there that need specialty care. Sixth floor was shelled. So in a meeting in 2009, and I should point out, hold on one second here. So, for several years now, we've been a top 50 children's hospital, ranking in these specialties: cancer, diabetes, gastroenterology, nephrology, orthopedics, pulmonology, and cardiology. And, given that we're in the 86th market, being a top 50 children's hospital is really quite extraordinary. Early on, our vision statement, and we promise this to this day, that we will be one of the nation's best and safest children's hospitals, be a model for patient and family-centered care, be a provider of choice for the children's health care in Wisconsin, and measurably improve the health status and well-being of Wisconsin's children through community partnerships. Patients we serve, you can see, our local area, about 65% of our patients come from that local area, but then also the RAP, which are the counties immediately surrounding Dane, about 20% of our patients come from there. And then the balance come from the rest of Wisconsin, about 15%. But I should point out that since we opened up our doors in 2007, we've treated kids from 49 out of 50 states. The only state that we have not treated the children from to date is Vermont. We see the sickest kids in the region and beyond. And, we are a resource for patients, from throughout Wisconsin, but also community hospitals in Meritor and St. Mary's. We are a specialty hospital, so quaternary and tertiary care. So the sickest children are referred to us from Meritor and St. Mary's. So in 2009, our chair of pediatrics came to one of our board meetings with news that our census was growing much quicker than anticipated. As a matter of fact, the projection based on the current census was that by 2015, we would be running out of rooms. Which was certainly, something that was not acceptable to us. So, in the midst of a recession, we launched a campaign called the Sick Kids Can't Wait campaign. And that was born out of that meeting where we had a vibrant discussion that day, while in the midst of a recession, how could we possibly go out and raise money for an expansion campaign? And our chair of pediatrics, Ellen Wald, will never forget her response. She said, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that, but sick kids can't wait. And with that, the name of our campaign was born. So we were privileged to have 2 honorary chairs for our Sick Kids Can't Wait campaign. One being Cindy Crawford. You may have seen that she was in town a couple of weeks ago. And the history as it relates to Cindy Crawford was she had, she's got one other sister, but also had a little brother by the name of Jeff, who was diagnosed with cancer back in the early 1970s at the age of 2. He was treated for cancer at UW Children's Hospital, unfortunately passed away in the mid-70s at the age of 4 years old. Back then, the survival rates for pediatric cancer patients was roughly 20%. So while the odds were stacked against Jeff, the Crawford family was very appreciative for the level of care that Jeff received. And as a young lady, Cindy made a vow to herself that somehow, some way, she would give back to the Children's Hospital. Little did she know that she was going to go on to become a supermodel, but she has stayed true to that vow. She has been a huge benefactor of the Children's Hospital, but also our pediatric cancer program. And for about 20 years served as the honorary chair of Kids with Courage, which was a reunion of our pediatric cancer survivors. And then we were also honored to have Coach McCarthy and his wife, Jessica, serve as co-chairs of the Sick Kids Can't Wait campaign. Some of you may recall that for 8 years, 2010 to 2017, Coach and Jessica served as hosts of the Mike and Jessica McCarthy Golf Invitational, which over the course of that 8 years raised over $2 million for the Children's Hospital. And I'm honored to say, even though Coach is now the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, who are 5-1, off to a great start this year, Coach and Jessica have remained loyal donors to the Children's Hospital, and for that we are most grateful. So, the Sick Kids Can't Wait campaign, there were several components to it, and I'll just run through these different components. So on the first floor, we built a hybrid cath lab with an interventional radiology suite. So this is a highly specialized suite, $5 million construction. The equipment actually comes from Siemens in Germany. And we were the first children's hospital in the world to receive this equipment. And so in this hybrid cath lab, we are able to perform very complex surgeries. An example might be heart surgery, where our doctors are operating in conjunction with interventional radiologists on a heart of a child that may be no longer than a thumbnail. So very complex surgeries that sometimes take 10, 12 hours to perform. So we've got just a tremendous team of surgeons and interventional radiologists that work together during the course of these surgeries. When we opened up in 2008, we had 4 surgical units. We now have 6 and 2 big procedure rooms as well. So as I mentioned, started out with about 4,000 surgeries a year, and now we are humming at 6,000 plus and open 24/7, 365. On our 8th floor, we have a level 4 neonatal intensive care unit. This is, when I say level 4, it's the highest level of care that's available. And so, these are children that come to us directly out of the womb in many cases, transported to Children's Hospital by Cheetah, which is our Children's Hospital Emergency Transport Ambulance. We've got a couple of them here in Madison, but most importantly, we have a network throughout the state. And so, for example, if a little boy or little girl is born in Green Bay or Wausau and needs to come immediately to American Family Children's Hospital, rather than that a 4-hour round trip or 5-hour round trip between Madison and Wausau or Green Bay, thanks to that network, those kids can be down in Madison in about 2 hours time. And this is literally that Cheetah. It's a NICU on wheels, where we've got a surgeon, nurse, respiratory therapist that are with that child and keeping them comfortable and alive in many cases during that trip down to Madison. On the 7th floor, we have our universal care unit. This is where we take care of kids with neurological issues, respiratory issues. Epilepsy comes to mind, spinal muscular atrophy, where children may need to come into the hospital 4 to 6 times a year for special treatment. And I should also add that we use this as an education experience, an opportunity for the parents, where we, where we're sending the kids home where they can be comfortable. We train the parents to treat their children, as best as they can at home. And should they need us, we're a call away. But this way the kids are at home being treated in a comfortable setting that rather than spending all of their time in the hospital. So that's our universal care center. And then, we also have on the first floor a radiology suite where we have MRI, CT scans, fluoroscopy, low dose radiation. The radiation dose is about 60%, 50 to 60% of what an adult would receive. So as little radiation as possible, which helps protect the child, but yields, the desired results. In our minds, when we were doing this expansion, this is what it looked like to us. And so, thanks to our donors, this was a $16 million project over the course of a few years that made all of these services possible. So today, we are an 8-floor facility, operational on 7 of those 8 floors, and the 6th floor, which was the original shelled floor, is still open. So, we've gone from 61 beds to 87 beds, now 111 beds, ultimately 135 beds once we build out that 6th floor. So today, what are we raising money for today now that we've completed our capital needs? Well, we have wonderful programs and services within the Children's Hospital that make the experience of being at the hospital not great, but exceptional. And a couple of those examples would be our Child Life program. We have specially trained child life specialists. As a matter of fact, Edgewood College has a child life degree where our specialists, they received education in early childhood education, child psychiatry, etc. And these are people that are equipped to help the child navigate through their hospital experience, whether on an inpatient basis or an outpatient basis. As a matter of fact, we are one of 8 children's hospitals in the country where we have child life operational 24/7, 365 in our emergency department. So if a child comes in at 3 o'clock in the morning, they are assisted by a child life specialist. We have one of the premier pediatric cancer programs in the world. As a matter of fact, we performed the first successful bone marrow transplant back in 1969. So we've got a wonderful team of physicians and physician scientists that not only treat our patients, but they're involved in cutting edge research as well. We have a child health advocacy program. As a matter of fact, we have a coal safety center on the first floor, which is open to the public. In that safety center, you will find anything that you need to safe equip your home, from gates to child seats to latches, etc. Anything that, snuggies, anything to help safe equip your home. And we also have a program where we are out in the schools teaching good safety habits, trying to keep kids out of the hospital to begin with. We have a patient family fund. A lot of the kids we treat, they come from young families, and quite often their child may be hospitalized for 3 or 4 months. In order for one parent to constantly be with that child, one parent may have to drop out of the workforce. The bills keep on coming, but their income may be cut in half. And so thanks to this patient family fund, we have the resources where we dole out grants, not loans, but grants to these families to help keep their lights on, pay their mortgage, transportation services. We also provide family meals. We host those family meals within the hospital 3 to 4 nights a week. And then we also have the Fund for Care Innovation, where we are constantly evolving with our technology and so forth. And so this is a fund that helps fund our innovation projects within the hospital. And then also, we've been growing our endowment. When I joined the hospital back in 2006, we had an endowment that was about $2 million, which generated about $80,000 in income a year. I'm happy to say that over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we created a society, the 1920 Society, in honor of our 100th anniversary last year, and also the Century Club. So we had 10 donors come forward that donated about $1.6 million in funds that were available to families that wanted to create their own named endowed fund. So the families that wanted to create their own named endowed funds received a 1-to-1 match from the Century Club, enabling them to create a 25,000 name fund in honor of their respective families. So in short time, our endowment has grown from $2 million back in 2006 to over $25 million today, generating over $1 million in revenue for the Children's Hospital. So, we've been on quite a journey. It's been over 100 years now, 5 different locations, growing from a staff of 20 back in the early 1920s to surgeons and pediatric specialists today that number 300 plus. Thanks to this community, we've not only built this new children's hospital, but expanded it as well, and helped fund these programs that make the visit of a patient truly excellent. And so, I thank donors like George and Ann Kroll that have been with us for 15 years plus in helping us make this journey possible. So anyhow, I appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Are we live again?
We are live. Yeah.
Jim, tell us about this matching gift program that is part of the fundraising that's going on.
Yeah, so that's the 1920 Society and the Century Club. So in order to create your own named endowed fund anywhere within the University of Wisconsin, it's $25,000. But thanks to this Century Club, donors can create their own named endowed fund for half of that, $12,500. It's a pledge over 5 years, and receive a 1-to-1 match from the Century Club as long as that Century Club is funded. So, we've gone from having roughly 15 endowed funds to now well over 100 endowed funds, thanks to this initiative. And if I may say, thanks to you and Ann that have created your own named endowed fund, George. So just another way that you've helped us out over these many years.
Jim, I've got a question for you. So the years ago, the Ronald McDonald House was built not too far from the Children's Hospital, probably before the Children's Hospital was expanded, and it covers all 3 hospitals. What do the families that facility has to be overcrowded or well sold out? What do the families do that are in town when you say like they're staying, their child is there for multiple months? Where are they staying, and what's being done about that?
Yeah, so great question. So yes, the Ronald McDonald House opened up in 1993 with 16 rooms. And that was a time when we had 61 rooms at the UW Children's Hospital. Now, as I mentioned, we've almost doubled that up to 111. So I'm happy to say that the new rooms in the Children's Hospital, I had mentioned the old rooms at 125 square feet. Today, the rooms in the new Children's Hospital start at 250 square feet, and they're actually zoned. So we've got family space in the at one end of the room, patient space in the middle of the room, and then provider space at the other end of the room. And we actually have a couch that folds out into a bed for the parents to stay. But the Ronald McDonald House has been a really, really important partner to us because, these families are uprooted. And so they come, the whole family comes to Madison while their child's being treated. So the Ronald McDonald House is where the balance of the family stays, quite often one parent and then 2 or 3 siblings. And so I'm happy to say that a few years ago, the Ronald McDonald House also launched a capital campaign that doubled the size of the Ronald McDonald House. So now they have 32 rooms, up from 16. And they bought the parcel of land right next to them. So in the event that they need to expand again, they can probably do so. So we're thankful for that partnership with the Ronald McDonald House.
The club might be interested to know that when the Ronald McDonald House decided to build in Madison, we were among the first clubs that came forward through a grant by a then member Charlie Cruzy of General Heating and Air Conditioning, a matching grant that we matched. Members of this club matched that money, and that went to the building fund for the Ronald McDonald House. And many of our members over the years have worked at the Ronald McDonald House as volunteers. In fact, they have so many volunteers, they don't even take applications anymore. It really is a marvelous organization.
And I'll just mention, you mentioned General Heating, George. The generosity of this community. I can't recall how many contractors we had building American Family Children's Hospital, but they donated services to great length, quite often at cost or slightly above cost, so that we could keep our costs down. So we built this state-of-the-art hospital, again, opened it up for about 43. It was actually a $78 million project, but 43 million of that was philanthropy. And that price tag was kept low thanks to the generosity of all those contractors.
Jim, your staff has a shout out in the chat. Peggy said her son received outstanding care for surgery last month. Shout out to Dr. Pamela Lang and her team.
She's awesome.
Jim, do they do inter-union heart surgeries?
Yeah, George, I'll tell you what, we do it all. You may recall, as little as probably 15 years ago, we had to refer kids to Milwaukee. We are now a 3-star program, which is, one of the top programs in the country. And so we have 2 pediatric heart surgeons that are top level certified. So, George, there's very little, if anything, that if nothing, we don't do as it relates to heart now.
Any more questions for Jim?
Amazing.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
And Jim, on behalf of all our speakers, a contribution will be made in your name, your honor, to the Rotary Foundation and Polio Plus Fund. So we do that for all our speakers. We'll do that for you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next week, Christine Benedict will be here to tell us about the Girls on the Run program.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool. Have a great Rotary week, everybody.
Richard, good to see you, as always.
Yeah.
I want to attribute it.
Billy?